There is a silence that kills louder than war. A man who loses his mind never makes a sound. He just fades, one compromise at a time. Not to fire, not to famine, not to swords or soldiers, but to softness. To a voice that soothes and slices. To eyes that promise heaven and deliver confusion. And the world claps, calls it romance, and tells him to endure. Smile through the storm. Be patient. Be understanding. Be less. But Marcus Aurelius never bowed to storms. He did not mistake poison for passion. He did not water dead flowers and call it love. He ruled, not over others, but over himself. And he warned of what happens when a man forgets who he is in the eyes of someone else. Today, millions walk that quiet path to ruin. Not with broken bones, but with broken spirits. They shrink themselves to fit into someone else's mood. They bleed quietly just to keep the peace. They call it strength. It is not. It is surrender, dressed in sacrifice, perfumed in delusion. This message is not for the comfortable. This is not poetry. This is not romance. This is a mirror. And if you dare to look, it will show you the chains you've learned to live with. Chains you now mistake for loyalty, for love, for being a good man. But there is no honor in dying slowly for someone who would not bleed a drop for you. So listen closely, not like a viewer, like a soldier, because this is war, not with her, but with your own silence. And the first step to reclaiming yourself is to see the enemy, not in her, but in everything you allowed. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. So let's begin where the destruction starts, with the 10 poisons a man should never drink. Not even once. Because once you taste them, you'll keep sipping until there's nothing left of the man you were meant to be. Let's begin. There are 10 poisons a man must never taste, but the first 5 are the ones most men swallow daily, and call it love. 1. Mockery in disguise. It begins with the laugh, the eye roll, the sharp comment wrapped in a joke. She humiliates you in front of others, then accuses you of being too sensitive when you bleed. You tell yourself she's playful, that she doesn't mean it. But a woman who laughs at her man does not love him. She studies him, finds his cracks, and presses. Marcus Aurelius said, "What injures the hive injures the bee." When she mocks you, even in jest, she is corroding the respect your soul needs to stand tall. You are not a man being loved. You are a man being carved down to size. And one day, when you look in the mirror and don't recognize yourself, remember, it started with a smile that cut too deep. 2. The storm that lives in your home. She is never at rest. Her moods are your weather. You walk on eggshells in your own castle, hoping today is a calm day, but the storm is always coming. She will cry, scream, collapse, and when you don't react the way she wants, she'll accuse you of being cold. But there is nothing romantic about being her emotional shock absorber. There is nothing noble about bleeding to keep her balanced. Marcus wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter retreat than in his own soul." But what retreat is there when chaos sleeps beside you? This is not passion. This is pathology. You are not building a life, you are dodging lightning. And one day, your nervous system will forget how to feel peace. 3. Validation as currency. She lives for the eyes of strangers. The posts, the poses, the curated skin displayed for the digital altar of attention. She says it's empowerment. But behind that mask is an addiction, to validation, to praise, to being seen by everyone except the man who sees her soul. You become the background noise to her performance, a prop in her story, a placeholder until someone better slides into her inbox. Marcus Aurelius warned, "It is not death that a man should fear, but never beginning to live." And the man who stands beside a woman who worships attention is already half dead, starving beside someone who gives all her warmth to the crowd. 4. Intimacy as leverage. She doesn't give herself to you, she trades. Withholds when she's upset. Rewards when you submit. She has turned something sacred into a weapon. And you, longing for closeness, find yourself begging at her feet. Not for love, but for scraps. You think you're being patient, stoic, understanding. But Marcus Aurelius taught self-mastery, not self-betrayal. The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts, he wrote. And what quality is left when every thought revolves around earning love through obedience? You are not her partner. You are her prisoner. And the cage is built out of your own desperation. 5. Contempt for your purpose. You tell her your goals, and she laughs. You speak of discipline, and she mocks. You build, and she interrupts. She does not see your vision as sacred. She only sees it as a distraction from her demands. This is not love. This is sabotage with a smile. Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." But how can you be one, when the very person beside you cuts down every branch you try to grow? You stay, hoping she'll understand. That one day, she'll see what you're building. But the longer you wait, the more your mission becomes a memory. One day, you'll wake up in a life that looks nothing like the one you were meant to lead, and realize it was not taken from you. It was traded away, one small insult at a time. 5 down. 5 remain. And if even one of these sounds familiar, know this, you're not in love. You're in bondage. Stay tuned, for 5 remain will reveal the deeper poisons, the ones that don't shout, but whisper you into surrender. 6. The battle you never signed up for. She doesn't want to walk beside you. She wants to outshine you. Her wins must be louder than yours. Her success is not shared, it's flaunted. You become a mirror, not a man. She measures her worth by standing taller than you, even if she has to shrink you to do it. Marcus Aurelius warned, ambition means tying your well-being to what other people say or do. But what happens when her ambition is to prove she's better than the man who protects her? You are no longer her partner, you are her opponent. And no matter how much you give, she will only value you when you're beneath her. This is not love. This is silent competition. And you're losing by playing. 7. Pain worn like a crown. Every cruel word she speaks is excused by her past. Every betrayal is justified by her trauma. She is never wrong, only wounded. And you? You become her therapist, her punching bag, her priest. She sins, and you repent. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." But this isn't revenge, it's a hijacking. She weaponizes your empathy. And the more broken she claims to be, the more guilty you feel for needing love, respect, peace. You are no longer a man. You are her emotional janitor, cleaning up messes she refuses to stop making. This is not healing. This is manipulation dressed as vulnerability. 8. Royal demands, peasant contributions. She expects the world from you. Royalty, sacrifice, strength. And what does she give in return? Criticism, defiance, silence. She calls herself the prize, but offers nothing but resistance. You build, and she evaluates. You lead, and she rebels. Not because you're weak, but because submission feels like loss to a woman ruled by ego. Marcus said, "So other people hurt me? That's their problem." But the man who stays with an ungrateful woman is not strong. He is starving himself of recognition, praying for appreciation that never comes. And the tragedy? The more you give, the less she values it. Because what is given without demand is discarded without thanks. 9. The quiet betrayals. She won't break your heart all at once. She'll chip at it. A little lie. A flirty message. A late night she can't explain. A photo she promised she'd never post. Not enough to leave, but just enough to hurt. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." But she does, and you stay. And every time you stay, she learns a lesson, that your boundaries are fiction. These are not tests of loyalty. These are rehearsals for disrespect. And your silence is her permission slip. 10. The vanishing of reverence. She doesn't fight with you. She no longer even sees you. You speak, she doesn't hear. You enter, she doesn't look. She's not angry. She's indifferent. And this, more than betrayal, is the wound that never stops bleeding. Because a man can survive hatred, but he cannot survive invisibility. Marcus said, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive. But what of the man who wakes beside a woman who sees no privilege in his presence? He stops rising. He stops building. He becomes a ghost in the house he built. This is not the loud end. This is the quiet death. The erosion of meaning, respect, and connection, until nothing remains but routine and silence. These are the 10. Not complaints. Not exaggerations. Realities. 10 poisons that don't just break a man, they erase him. And yet, most men won't walk away, not because they are weak, but because they've been taught that suffering is love and silence is virtue. But Marcus Aurelius knew the truth. Silence can be strength or surrender. And the difference lies in what you do next. The war has been named. It's time to see how men lose it, one choice at a time. The real tragedy is not in what she does. It's in what you allow. Not in the storm she brings, but in how long you choose to stand in the rain without an umbrella, convincing yourself it's just weather. Most men don't fall. They dissolve. One quiet compromise at a time. It starts small. A look you ignore. A word you excuse. A boundary you let her step over because it's not worth the fight. But that line she crossed? It doesn't fade. It moves. And tomorrow she crosses another. And again. And again. Until you wake up in a life that doesn't feel like yours, with a woman who doesn't respect you and a self you no longer recognize. Marcus Aurelius said, "A man should be upright, not kept upright." But too many men are being kept upright by memory, by hope, by the ghost of who she used to be. They tell themselves it's just a rough patch, that she'll change, that if they love harder, try more, stay longer, it'll get better. But love does not live where respect has died. And trying harder to win back someone who takes you for granted isn't strength. It's self-abandonment. You learn to read her moods like weather maps. You change your tone, your timing, your truth, just to avoid the next emotional explosion. You start to think your pain is the price of being a good man. It's not. It's the price of being a silent one. They say real men don't walk away. But what's real about a man who stays quiet in a relationship that's killing his soul? Who confuses endurance with honor and suffering with loyalty? That's not love. That's slow suicide, with candles and anniversary photos to distract from the coffin. Marcus wrote, "Don't waste what's left of your life speculating about others unless it is for mutual benefit." But when was the last time it was mutual? When did you stop talking and start decoding? When did you stop feeling safe and start tiptoeing through your own home? This is not love. This is surveillance. And you are not her man. You are her manager of moods, of silence, of chaos. And in the process, you've stopped managing yourself. You have been taught to absorb pain without breaking, to carry her wounds, her words, her wars, and still smile. They call it patience, Stoicism, maturity. But Marcus Aurelius would not call it that. He would call it delusion. He would call it a man enslaved, not by chains, but by ideas, by lies dressed up as love. And the worst part? The world rewards this suffering. It tells you to communicate better, be more vulnerable, compromise more, as if your bleeding is your fault, as if there is no limit to how much you must tolerate to prove you are good. But a man who is always understanding, always giving, always patient, without receiving peace, respect, or truth, doesn't become a hero. He becomes a shell. The eyes dim, the shoulders sag, the voice lowers, the laughter fades. He starts apologizing for wanting the very things he was born to protect: peace, clarity, freedom. Marcus Aurelius would not bow to that kind of life. He would rise, and so must you, not by yelling, not by hating, but by choosing, by remembering what you were before her and what you could be after. Because the longer you tolerate what dishonours your soul, the further you drift from the man you were meant to become. This isn't just about her behavior. It never was. The real war is not with her. It's with the part of you that keeps saying it's not that bad, when it absolutely is. You don't need more signs. You need more self-respect. The road back begins the moment you stop defending her and start defending yourself. Every man who wakes up in a life built on silence and sacrifice eventually faces the same moment, the stillness after the storm. She's still shouting. Or maybe she's gone. But something inside you has stopped responding. Not out of hatred, but out of exhaustion. You've bent in every direction trying to keep the peace, but there's no peace. You've compromised your standards, your time, your voice, but it only made her colder. You tried to be softer, more understanding, more forgiving, and she gave you more reasons to forgive. Now, finally, you stop. And in that stop, something begins. Not anger, not revenge. Clarity. You see, a man doesn't rebuild when he's loud. He rebuilds in silence. Not the silence of weakness, but of awakening. The moment he realizes, I do not need to explain myself. I do not need to be understood. I do not need to earn peace. I am peace. This is the stillness Marcus Aurelius spoke of. The fortress within. The place where your power was never lost, only buried under years of noise. You stop chasing. Stop explaining. Stop fixing what was built to break you. And something returns. Your breath. Your posture. Your fire. You no longer argue. You observe. You no longer react. You respond, or you don't. You no longer try to decode her moods, win her back, or prove your worth. You simply remember, you were whole before she arrived, and you'll be whole long after she's gone. This is not about becoming cruel. This is about becoming conscious. About no longer dancing for love that costs you your dignity. About walking away, not in rage, but in certainty. Marcus Aurelius lived in a world of betrayal, of war, of politics. And still he wrote, "Be like the cliff against which the waves continually break, but it stands firm and tames the fury of the water." That's who you must become now. The cliff. Not shaken, not broken, not yelling, just still. You are no longer here to please. You are here to live. You are no longer negotiating for scraps of peace, you demand it with your presence. Not with raised voice, but with raised standards. And she feels it. The woman who once used silence as punishment now finds your silence terrifying. The woman who once cried to control now sees those tears fall on stone. You no longer fold. You no longer explain. You simply leave. From the room. From the conversation. From the life that made you small. Because you have returned to yourself. To the path Marcus walked. The path of internal command. Where mornings begin with purpose. Where your words are few and your time is sacred. Where you read more than you scroll, build more than you complain, and retreat not to sulk, but to sharpen. Let them call it cold. They don't understand kingship. You don't move to be loved. You move to stay aligned. Your scars have become scripture. Your silence has become strength. You have seen what it costs to abandon yourself, and you will never pay that price again. The temptation to return will come. She'll text. She'll apologize. She'll remember how to be soft. But you've seen behind the curtain. And once a man rebuilds himself from ruin, he does not trade that empire to sit in someone else's audience. He writes the law now. He sets the terms. Marcus Aurelius said, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being." And now, finally, you know what that work is. Not chasing, not begging, not fixing, but becoming. Becoming the kind of man whose peace cannot be purchased, whose worth cannot be negotiated, and whose time cannot be wasted. That is the rebirth. This is the moment where boys become men, and men become sovereign. When you've walked through pain, through silence, through sacrifice, and come out the other side, not harder, but clearer. Not cruel, but untouchable. Not angry, just done. You have seen the cost of tolerance. You have watched yourself fade trying to love someone who was never looking for love, only control. And now, finally, you understand, not all love is good. Not all women come with peace. And not every storm deserves your anchor. The world will call you cold, bitter, guarded. Let them. Because the world never had to bleed with you. The world never lay awake in the dark, rehearsing how to say things just right so she wouldn't explode. The world never twisted itself into something small just to keep someone else's ego safe. But you did. You lived it. You survived it. And now you walk with armor forged in silence. This is not numbness. This is clarity. This is the man who no longer tolerates what drains him, even if it comes wrapped in beauty, memory, or need. This is the man who doesn't beg to be heard, he simply removes himself. Who doesn't argue for respect, he commands it by presence alone. This is the final law: you honor yourself, or you leave the room. Because if she can't see your value, she was never meant to hold your time. Marcus Aurelius ruled not by asking, but by being. He said, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." And now, you guard those thoughts like a warrior. No woman lives rent-free in your mind. No memory controls your future. No apology erases a pattern. You're not here to repeat cycles. You're here to build empires, starting with yourself. They told you to try harder. You did. They told you to be patient. You were. They told you to forgive again. And you did. But now you tell yourself the one thing they never will: enough. Not because you hate her. Not because you need revenge. But because you finally love yourself more than the chaos. More than the performance. More than the story you were trying so hard to keep alive. There is no glory in being emotionally bulletproof. Strength is not in absorbing damage, it's in refusing to stand where damage is constant. You are not here to argue your value. You are not here to convince someone to treat you well. You are here to guard the flame Marcus spoke of, the sacred fire of self-command. The discipline to walk alone rather than kneel with company. The clarity to see through lies that come dressed as love. And when you walk like this, awake, unshakable, precise, they won't know what to do with you. Because the world only knows how to manipulate men who doubt themselves. You are not that man anymore. Now when she enters your life, she feels it. Not your pain, not your desperation, but your presence. Your silence is different. Your standards are different. She knows this is not a man you play with. This is a man you either honor or leave. That is the kingdom rebuilt. And to every man listening, remember this. You were not born to suffer in silence. You were not born to explain yourself into exhaustion. You were not born to tolerate what dishes your soul. You were born to lead, to protect your mind, to guard your fire, to command yourself. And when you do, the world does not become easier. You become immovable. So remember Marcus Aurelius, not as history, as a mirror. And if this message woke something in you, keep walking. Never return to where you